Good evening. Today I am going to talk to you about my mentoring evaluation. This is week 7 of the course, and there was a number of questions that we had to interview our protege and kind of get their input on what they thought of the mentoring and what we thought the outcomes were. The first question was, how did the mentoring relationship further the protege's goals and interests? First of all, they made it through their initial 8-week training during this time period, which is a good milestone to see whether they are going to understand the concepts, the basic concepts of planning or not. Um, and now he is in the process of, once we are done with that 8 weeks of training, he's prepping himself now, because at the end of it, we have it's almost like an exit interview of a job where you're interviewing for your position with your superintendent to make sure that you understand everything that you've learned in that 8 weeks, and that this is where your heart lies, because planning is a position at our refinery that you have to be fully invested in, because you have a lot of people relying on your job packs to make sure that we do things safely and efficiently. So he has decided that he does want to be a mechanical planner, which is a big first step. Um, we will see where it goes. We'll see how he interviews. Based off of that interview, he'll either get a few more weeks of training before he's released on his own, or they can decide to cut him loose, or they can decide that he's ready to be on his own for a little bit and subject to evaluations at certain time increments. Um, One of the most important things that we did together during this time period is that we got to work on an unplanned shutdown together. And what that does is it shows me and it shows his unit whether he has the potential to handle the immense amount of pressure that comes from when a situation happens as it did. He performed reasonably well. He had me there with him the whole time, and I think he used me as a crutch, and he will fully admit that, and he actually did when we were talking about it. Um, and so I don't know how he would actually fare on his own. It is pressure packed. I remember when I was first starting out planning, I don't know if I could have handled something like that on my own either. More than likely, he's always going to have somebody with him for the first year or two. And then when the unit feels comfortable with him, he can be on his own at that time. So the second question that we had to answer was, how did I help enhance his skills to help him reach his goals? First of all, I had to understand what his goal was. I wanted to make sure, like I said a few minutes ago, that his heart was in the right place, that planning was something that he wanted to do, because a lot of times people will get upgraded for a position and they'll accept the upgrade just for the extra money, but doesn't really know what the job entails. I do feel his heart is in it. He told me his heart is in it, and I have no reason to doubt that. Um, and basically, I'm going to go kind of over what we've went through in the mentoring sessions throughout this thing. I've taught him how to research, which is one of the most basic tenets of planning. You have to know where to find information. You have to know who to go to get the information. And lastly, you have to know that the information you're getting is correct. Because there's tons of information out there, and if you have the wrong metallurgy for a line, it could have catastrophic consequences. So those tenets, the tenet of research in particular, is something that I try to instill in everybody when I am doing their mentoring. Um, I've taught them how to interact with vendors. I mean, we interact with vendors on a daily, hourly, minute basis a lot. We're trying to either rush materials in, get the right materials in that we need, get service contractors in. You name it, we have to be able to interact with multiple vendors inside and outside of the corporation. Another huge thing for a planner is, like many jobs, is you have to be able to multitask. Things come at you fast and furious. Things change on a minute by minute, second by second basis sometimes. Priorities change, break-ins happen. Break-in work is a huge responsibility and it's a huge disruptor to our normal workflow, and we really have to work through how to filter through that and keep your main work going also. I kind of taught him how to filter out noise. There's a lot of noise, what I call noise, just stuff that we don't really need to be dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And so I kind of hold stuff like that off until I have free time to where I can actually work on it, because that stuff just clogs up time that you don't necessarily have to do in a certain quick time period as in our normal daily work. I taught him about the specifics of contracts. I talked about that a lot one week, actually multiple weeks throughout this whole process. Contracts are another important tenet of planning. You have to understand what a time and material contract is and what things affect it. You have to understand what a unit rate contract is and what things affect it. And you have to understand what a lump sum contract is and the things that can affect the pricing of that. And you also have to understand that you can't have the same contractors working on the same type of contracts within the same day, because then contractors can get double payments, and that's a huge controls violation. And you also need to make sure that you have your purchase orders in and your service recs in before work is started, because it's another huge liability to the company if you do not, if they're working without purchase orders. So those are a lot of the things that are, and I taught him the daily grind of planning, Planner Cockpit, which is what we use, our work management systems, and basically how to plan each different type of job that he's going to encounter. That's the basic day-to-day stuff, but that's the meat and potatoes of the job. So in order to get really good at that, you have to have repetition. You have to do the job over and over and over and over again. It isn't like riding a bike. If you haven't done it for a while, you will forget some of the important steps. And like I said, things change on a daily, minute by minute, sometimes hour by hour basis. So you need to make sure that you're kept abreast of how to do it properly, and you keep that repetition alive to where you're duplicating it over and over, and it becomes almost second nature, but you still want to keep your eye on the prize and make sure that you are doing your research so that you're not getting lax in your job. So the question then becomes, were the expected outcomes that we set out for in week 2 met in our mentoring plan? And I can simply tell you that it's too early to tell. Jamie has made a lot of progress, but planning is a career that takes years to learn. I can tell you that the department he works in is still developing a trust level with him. That takes time. It takes proven reliability over and over and over. It's that redundancy that really builds up the trust and relationship with the units you're in. And another thing he's going to need is just unit experience. The unit he's in, he needs to embrace that unit, learn that unit, and it's going to take time, sometimes years. I've been in the same unit for 5 years, and there's still the stuff that comes up every week, every month, somewhere in that area that I've never seen before in the unit. And it's a new learning experience, and you feel like you kind of have to relearn everything all over again. So it's too soon to tell. I feel that he is on the right path, and he feels he's on the right path too. He feels he's gotten the tools he needs to succeed in that path, But right now, at this point, it's up to him to get that experience on his own, and then participate in unit shutdowns and just make sure that he's getting that full breadth of knowledge that you need in order to become a good mechanical planner. And so the last question is me as a mentor, how is the relationship with Jamie, my protege, enriched my career and leadership skills? I've trained many people out there, and I feel that when I train somebody, it's my way of giving back something to the company that has given me so much over my career. As far as the enrichment I get from it, I feel good about myself when I see somebody that I have trained go out on their own and succeed on their own and develop that sense of accomplishment that I have when I complete jobs in my unit and I keep my unit running and efficiently and safely. So one thing that has happened recently though is with all the training I've done and the mentorship opportunities that I've had at work, I'm trying to parlay that into becoming a mentor around the circuit, which means being able to go to any of the refineries within ExxonMobil and being a mentor at those refineries. I've taken a step to that. I just went to Texas 2 weeks ago, and I trained to become a circuit trainer. I actually taught a 2-day class to other ExxonMobil planners, and it went really well. And it seems to be lined up for the future that I may be traveling not only the country but maybe parts of the world, doing these training classes and being that mentor and kind of spreading the message of needing good planners throughout the circuit. It's another way that I'm giving back to the company, but it also is helping me on my career path and going to achieve my next goal, which is to go from a frontline supervisor position to a superintendent level position, which I hope to get within the next 2 to 3 years. It sometimes takes anywhere from 2 to 5 years for people to attain that next level if they have shown the attributes that the company wants, and that's a well-rounded person who goes outside of their comfort zone and who not only helps his own peers but helps others, and he helps other refineries, and he participates, and he just becomes a good, reliable person to work around, one that people like to work for and one that people like to work with. Thank you and good night.